everybody's mic's on.
Tonight, before we officially start the meeting, we're going to give the oath of office to our newest councilman, TJ Hoke. TJ, if you could join me at the podium. TJ, this is for a term beginning March 14th, 2022, ending December 31, 2023. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, TJ Hoke,
I, TJ Hoke,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and will obey the laws thereof.
and will obey the laws thereof.
I swear to,
I swear to,
in all respects,
in all respects,
uphold and enforce
uphold and enforce
the provisions of the Charter
the provisions of the Charter
and the ordinances of Bellbrook,
and the ordinances of Bellbrook,
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations. Welcome back.
Thank you. Sign right here.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
At this time, I want to formally call to order the meeting of the Bellbrook City Council. Today's date is Monday, March the 14th, 2022. Tonight, in addition to our police chief, our retiring sergeant, we do have 4 Eagle Scouts. And at this time, I'd like to ask the Eagle Scouts if they're interested to come forward and join us or lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Gentlemen, you just come down here to the center.
Will you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Rob, could you call the roll?
Mrs. Cyphers.
Here.
Mr. Greenwood.
Here.
Mr. Harding.
Here.
Mr. Havens.
Here.
Mr. Hoke.
Here.
Mrs. Middlestetter.
Here.
Mayor Schweller.
Here. And it's nice to have a full council tonight. It's been not like this since, I think, June of 2021. Before you, you have the minutes of our last meeting, which is February the 28th. Does there any changes or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, I declare the minutes approved as submitted. Next up, under mayor's announcements and special guest, first and foremost, swearing in and administration of oath of office for Chief Steve Carmen. Chief, could you join me at the podium? We'll do it again.
Reread this one.
Did you join you up here?
I'm sorry?
Did you want him to join you?
No, unfortunately, my boys had me work tonight. Sorry.
Okay, raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, Steve Carmen,
I, Steve Carmen,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and will obey the laws thereof.
and will obey the laws thereof.
I swear to,
I swear to,
in all respects,
in all respects,
to uphold and enforce
to uphold and enforce
the provisions of the Charter
the provisions of the Charter
and the ordinances of Bellbrook,
and the ordinances of Bellbrook,
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
He's already signed.
Right, you're good. Nothing to sign. We're good. All right, good. Next up tonight, we have the retirement of Sergeant Burns. Sergeant Burns, if you could please join me up at the lectern, or the podium, rather. We have a proclamation from the city, then we'll have some words from the chief, and then some words from Jim Burns. City of Bellbrook, Office of the Mayor, proclamation. Whereas on July 5th, 1994, Jim Burns began his career with the Bellbrook Police Department. Whereas December 1st, 1994, Burns was promoted to full-time police officer, and on May 13th, 2019, Burns was promoted to sergeant. Whereas over the course of his 28-plus year career, Sergeant Burns has had great influence and impact within the Bellbrook Police Department and community through his leadership and dedicated service. Whereas Sergeant Burns has built cooperative relationships with residents, businesses, students, community organizations, and other local governments that will provide benefit to Bellbrook for years to come. And whereas during his service, he has received several commendations and notes of recognition for his long-standing dedication and effort. Whereas his colleagues know him as a professional, dependable co-worker who takes pride in his work in the law enforcement profession and in this community. Now therefore, I, Michael Schweller, Mayor of the City of Bellbrook, and the Bellbrook City Council do hereby proclaim our sincere appreciation and gratitude for 28 years of dedicated service by honoring Sergeant Jim Burns. Congratulations, Sergeant. Thank you. This time we'll turn it over to the Chief.
Great. It takes me great pleasure to remark on a wonderful career of Sergeant Jim Burns. I had the opportunity to work with Jim for many years, 28 of them. That's we started this job a long time ago, Jim, and I came up with a couple things here. So if you want to join me in the way back machine here for a minute, when Jim came to work here in the early '90s. TV shows like Seinfeld, NYPD Blue, Roseanne, and Home Improvement were the top shows on TV. The price of gas was around $1.70 a gallon. Believe that? Lou Holtz was the coach at Notre Dame. Jim is a diehard Notre Dame fan, if you didn't know that already. Vinny Testaverde was the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. And you get extra points if you tell me what their record was that year.
I'd rather not say.
Rather not say. Actually, they were 11-5, so very respectable. Movies were still being rented at your local Blockbuster. You take them home and watch them on your VHS player. Computers were very popular and becoming a mainstay in many homes. And for those of you that don't know Jim, he has a certain fondness for working with computers, and I know he will miss this greatly when he leaves here. So a lot of things have changed, but some things have not. And the things that haven't changed are Jim's steadfast work ethic, his dedication to his profession, his fellow officers, and the Bellbrook community. So Jim, in recognition of an outstanding career with Bellbrook, we'd like to present you with a little token of our appreciation in recognition of your service here at Bellbrook. Congratulations, Jim.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate it. You know, sometimes this job's a little stressful, and so I got a lot of thank yous to get by here. Our past chief, Doug Daugherty, he did a lot for this community and a lot for our department. He brought back fun and laughter to our department, which we hadn't had for a while. So I thank you to Chief Daugherty, our past chief. Our present chief, Steve Carbon, besides all the duties that he had while he was captain, he was our electronics computer expert, like he just told you, and if anybody knows me and computers do not get along at all. So it was very seldom that a week didn't go by that I marched into his office and said, I need this fixed. And whether it was something hard or something easy that anybody else could do, he never made fun of me, never laughed at me, but I know deep back in his office, he would always roll his eyes and say, oh God, not him again.
I didn't do that one.
To my fellow officers, I can't thank you enough for working and having my six every time I needed it. We always backed each other up, and it's not an I job, it's a we job, and everybody works together and takes care of everything. So I thank all my officers. You guys, it was a privilege and honor serving with all of you. My biggest thank you goes to my family. My sons, Jimmy, Jason, and Mark. When you start this job, it takes a while to get some seniority, and you can't pick the shift you want or the hours you work. A lot of times when I started, you work the weekends, you work the holidays, so there were sporting events that I was not able to attend, or family functions that I either couldn't attend or had to leave early. But they seemed to understand, and it wasn't that big of a problem for them. But I know deep down inside they were disappointed. My biggest thank you is to my wife, Marilyn, the backbone of our family. She took care of all that stuff. She did everything for us. And then after that, I went ahead and went to midnight, so she had to stay home by herself at night. And I know that wasn't pleasant for her, but she never complained. And the only reason I'm standing here now is because of her. Thank you. Everyone that stopped by for me tonight, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Again, thank you, Sergeant Burns, and thanks to your commitment to Bellbrook. 28 years is a long time. We appreciate that. Thank you. Next up, we have to recognize 4 Eagle Scouts. If they can join me at the podium, we will read one proclamation with 4 different names.
Mayor, I just got a text that said that Dakota Davis was called into work, so he's
Okay.
one of the 4 that won't make it tonight.
Somebody may have taken my proclamations from the podium. Jim, do you have some pages on the back of yours?
I wanted them all.
Alrighty, Jen, I'll read the proclamation, present each one to you, and give you a chance to talk a little bit about your Eagle Scout project and introduce yourself to the citizens if you'd like to. If the Scoutmasters want to talk briefly too, I would invite them to do so. City of Bellbrook, Office of the Mayor, Proclamation. Whereas the City of Bellbrook is a place for families to take pride in a sense of community and citizen involvement. Whereas the vision of the Boy Scouts of America is to prepare every eligible youth in America to become responsible, participating citizens and leaders who are guided by the Scout Oath and law. Whereas the Boy Scouts of America encourage Eagle Scout candidates to complete worthy projects to improve their neighborhoods, their community, and the region. Whereas this is the highest award a Scout can receive, with just 2% of Scouts accomplishing all merits, activities, and requirements to achieve the distinguished rank. And whereas the holding of the Court of Honor, this confirmed Eagle Scout has proven his commitment to lead and participate in making the community a better place. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Michael W. Schweller, Mayor, City of Bellbrook, and the Bellbrook City Council do hereby proclaim our sincere congratulations and appreciation for your commitment and service to achieve the rank of Eagle Scout. By Dakota Davis, John Leffeld, that's you, Connor Luby at the end, and Luke Smallwood. And I'll go ahead and sign this in the City of Bellbrook. Each one of you have a proclamation. Luke? Connor? Congratulations to you. Congratulations. Thank you, man. And John, congratulations. If you gentlemen would like to, I'll let you have the podium for a few minutes to tell us about your Eagle Scout project and give us a little update what's going on.
Hello, my name is John Layfeld. My Eagle Scout project was making a butterfly transit trail at Morris Reserve, and we built that to allow more monitoring for butterflies and allow a better idea of what kind of species numbers we have here in the local area. And we did that back in 2020. So it's been 2 years now. I got my Eagle Scout rank about a year after that in 2021. That's pretty much all there is to my Eagle Scout project.
Thank you, John.
My name is Luke Smallwood. I just recently got my Eagle Scout about a month ago, but I did my project about 3 years ago because I did not want to do the paperwork for it. But I have since got that done, and my project was working closely with the Sugar Maple Festival and helping to get the Sugar Maple Festival kids tent up and running again. The games that they had when I came in were about 10 years old and falling apart down to the screws. So I worked very closely with my dad, who is an expert word worker. Yeah. And we helped rebuild, design, and make those games shiny and new again, and hopefully they will stay that way. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
Hello, I'm Connor Luby. I achieved the rank of Eagle June 19th, 2021, about 10 days before my 18th birthday, so just right in the nick of time. And much like Luke, I got my project done in 2018 because I did not want to do the paperwork either. My project was the renovation of a free food pantry for what used to be called the Bellbrook Resource Center. This pantry would help people, below the poverty line to have a meal just for the weekend when the resource center was closed, without having to, go in and ask, since the resource center is closed on the weekends. The pantry was built by a third party. I am unsure of who exactly, but it was not finished to the former director, Susan Lopez's exact specifications, so I worked closely with her to finish it and get everything that she wanted out of it. And that's all. Thank you.
We're going to see that Dakota gets this.
Yep.
Does your Scoutmaster want to talk, or? If he wants to, you certainly can. This is a friendly face.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Adam.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I just want to say that the Eagle Scout rank is impressive. You'll see a lot of patches on the kids' sashes, and they work and they have defined requirements they need to do. And that'll get them through the first half of Boy Scouts. They can get up to first class by demonstrating what they've learned. They go camping, they start a fire. And this past weekend we went camping, and John was there. Phil and Connor were not, but an Eagle Scout is the one who's showing the younger kids how to make the fires, how to set up their tents when it's cold. Hey, it's all right. Let's go gather some wood. We'll get warmed up that way. And the Eagle Scout rank is a lot more than just what you do. It's how you mentor the younger kids and show your leadership ranks. We're talking about Eagle Scout projects. That's a major leadership thing. You have to plan your own project, and that's hard. And you have to motivate other people to help you do the project. So they can start a fire, they can get lost in the woods, and then find their way home. But they've also demonstrated a high degree of leadership to earn this award. So congratulations, boys. You've done a great job. Be proud of it.
Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, if anybody on council wants to speak to any of our three special guests this evening, I would invite them to do so. You want to start with Catherine, or?
I just want to say congratulations on earning your Eagle Scout. Congratulations, guys. Can't help you out with paperwork. I still hate it, so. The one thing that I'm sure you don't realize now, but what you've learned being in scouting is something that'll be with you the rest of your life. And you might not know it, but all through life, it's gonna help you. So congratulations, thanks.
I just want to say that is a huge thing, getting through that whole ordeal of becoming an Eagle Scout. My nephew was an Eagle Scout, all of my nephews were. And the one on his first job interview, it was down to him and one other candidate. And he was the Eagle Scout, the other guy wasn't. And the interviewer said, you know what, with you being an Eagle Scout, I know what kind of dedication that you have. And he ended up getting his first job because of that. But it goes a long way beyond just this.
That's absolutely the truth. I'll take Eagle Scout over straight A student anytime when I'm hiring. I was actually Scoutmaster when these guys joined the troop. Very glad to see you guys finish. Do you remember how many people joined that year?
Heck of a lot.
How many are left?
I'm sure we were a handful.
There were a lot, so good job, guys. Glad to see you finish.
I just want to say congratulations as a father of 2 young boys. Thanks for setting a good example for the younger kids in our community. Thank you.
Congratulations. I agree with everything that's been said about the integrity and the steadfastness that Eagle Scouts show, that's a shining star on your resume. So congratulations for your achievements.
And again, congratulations, gentlemen. Also, congratulations to Chief Carmen. And also congratulations and best wishes to retiring Sergeant Burns. Thank you. Public hearing of proposed ordinances, we have none this evening. Again, board reports we have none this evening. Again, any of our invited guests care to leave right now, we will not be offended. That's fine. You're welcome to stay, but if
It's really exciting.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, guys.
I thought it was just.
It's just on the cover.
My Girl Scouts was down to 2.
Thank you.
By the time
I
we
didn't even recognize.
It's so funny, they stand up in this skinny little body and
not everybody had to leave.
deep.
Tonight, we do have an introduction of an ordinance, ordinance 2022-0-4. Councilwoman Cyphers, please.
Ordinance number 2022-0-4, amending ordinance 2022-0-3 by making supplemental appropriations for expenses of the City of Bellbrook for the period beginning January 1st, 2022 and ending December 31st, 2022, and declaring an emergency. Whereas the City of Bellbrook adopted the 2022 annual budget based on the best information available at the time, and whereas additional costs and/or adjustments will occur in various 2022 personnel services and other expenses which require the amendment of various appropriation levels. Now therefore, the City of Bellbrook hereby ordains, Section 1, that the 2022 appropriation levels and several of the funds listed below be amended as follows. The amendment is in the general fund administrative category, $35,000. Section 2, this ordinance is declared to be an emergency measure necessary to meet a public emergency affecting health, safety, morals, or the public welfare, or a special emergency in the operation of a municipal department, and for the further reason that these funds are needed to complete payment for a fuel purchase. Therefore, this ordinance shall take full force and effect immediately upon its adoption by council. Section 3, it is hereby found and determined that all formal actions of this council concerning and relating to the adoption of this ordinance were adopted in an open meeting of this council, and that any and all deliberations of this council that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including but not limited to Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Thank you, Catherine. Rob, do we have some information on this supplemental or?
Yes, absolutely.
a little bit of-
Yeah, absolutely. The purpose of the supplemental is to cover the purchase of fuel. We provide services for the school district for use of our fuel pumps. All our buses and all our vehicles share that with us. They cover about 70% of the cost of operation and generally about 70% of the fuel usage going through it. In years past, when the school reimburses for the purchase of fuel, it was basically passed through the books. However, it was an expense on our books, and that expense was never properly appropriated in years past. In order to do that, we have to have that expense appropriated as part of the budget. I didn't catch it when we did the budget because I wasn't aware of that practice when the budget was set for previous years. So what we've done is we've told the school that the easiest thing to do is to have them purchase their own fuel. The main thing between it was, or the main reason that we purchased it before was they did not set up an EFT, electronic fund transfer type of bank transaction. There's a discount for the fuel to do that from the vendor as opposed to sending a check. I'm not sure what the discount is, but it's nominal, but hey, it's a discount, right? So everybody's going to take advantage of that. Any public entity should. So they did not have that set up, so we did the purchase on their behalf, and then they paid us for their portion. But again, that's an expense on our books, and that needs to be appropriated. From here forward, we're not going to be doing that. They're going to cover the cost of their expense through their own EFT. We're going to cover our expense, so we're not going to have to increase our budget any further beyond that. But for the first purchase, we're going to need to do that because that was the EFT has already come through our books. So that's what this appropriation does, is it allows for that expense to be covered and an approved appropriation to do so. But again, moving forward for the rest of the year, the schools easily, Mrs. Jones got us all, help them get set up with the EFT, and they're happy to do it. And that way, their books are their books, our books are our books, and it provides the proper appropriation and transparency for the expenditure. So it is written to be considered at introduction tonight as an emergency, so we would ask that you do that so we can process this and keep things on track for the rest of the year.
Good, thanks, Rob. I'm glad you caught it because it's one of those things that's just out there and you never know what these auditors are going to focus on and where they make their hay and make a lot of noise about certain items. I'm surprised they've not talked about this, but certainly we have to have both sides of the transaction recorded. Any comments or thoughts of council?
So that was actually going to be one of my questions. How did we discover this? Was the bill came in, or the auditors they gathered their samples? Was this something that they found, or is it just the bill came in, it's higher?
It's when the bill came in to be processed, and through accounts payables, I recognize that we did not have the appropriation for it. So,
Okay. So how do we know which portion belongs to the school and which portion belongs to the city if we're sharing a tank? I mean, that, in my mind, that's what I'm picturing. We're sharing a tank, but we have a portion and they have a portion.
each fuel dump, or not into the tank, but fuel usage per vehicle, is
okay.
tracked and assigned through the fuel system. So it is tracked by that. You can know by user how many gallons, date, time, all that stuff.
Okay.
And then that's used as the system to invoice for the amount of fuel re-pumped into the tanks. So it's kind of a in the rears type of situation. The tank's full, what they use, then when we fill it back up, they pay for what portion that was used. And that's done by the fuel system. And the school also does pay an administrative fee per gallon used for the use and administration of the system.
So we've been sending them a bill prior.
Correct.
So they, okay.
In fact, our fuel maintenance fund that is part of the budget, that source of revenue is from the schools.
Thank you.
And they, just to be clear, the schools have always paid for their fuel used. The city has not covered the cost of that. They have always paid it. It's just on the books, it shows as revenue and expense, but our appropriations ordinance did not cover that expense.
Okay. So I had one more question.
Sure.
I'm sorry. So you already mentioned there was a surcharge, but do the tanks belong to us? Is it the city responsible for the maintenance and the upkeep?
That is correct.
So is the surcharge that's tacked on something that we as the city add, or is that something that the gas company or whoever? Do we
as-
have enough in the surcharge to split the maintenance costs?
Yes, and if there happens to be a significant unanticipated expense for the maintenance, the agreement calls that the school shares 70% of that expense.
That was another question I was gonna ask, if there was
We
some
did
sort of
some maintenance on
formal-
it last year, the year before.
I believe so, yes, an update to the system, the software system, I believe.
I don't have any more questions, thanks.
Okay.
Good questions.
Forrest?
I just remembering that, a year and a half ago, we went with a maintenance charge, because, there was some maintenance that came due or something and got it worked out.
We also looked, I think, at the savings. I think we find a pretty good benefit to buying the fuel in bulk like that.
Yeah.
And we got this place all set up at Station 2.
Correct.
Anybody else on council?
I just had a quick question. Under this, it says the cost is 29,000, but the total revision is 35,000. What is the difference?
Right, because it's in the rears, we're covering just to make sure with the cost of fuel and everything, when we go to bill for the next fill up, we had a little bit of an estimate in there because the cost of fuel has actually gone up since its last purchase, so.
And then any excess will go back to where it came from.
Correct, it's just an appropriation, so if it's not used, then it's not used. It's covered as an appropriation in case, correct.
Any other comments, discussion?
The only other question I had was about maintenance, so we covered that, so.
Okay. We have a motion regarding ordinance 2022-0-4.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2022-0-4.
Thank you. And a second, please.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
On a motion to approve at introduction ordinance 2022-0-4. Mrs. Cyphers.
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Mr. Harding.
Yes.
Mr. Havens.
Yes.
Mr. Hoke.
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter.
Yes.
Mayor Schweller.
Yes. Thank you, Rob.
Motion carries.
We have no resolutions this evening. Item 11, reference of legislative proposals to committees. I think if we look at item 15 being old business, we'll maybe go through the rules of council. We can probably delete that reference off at that time, should we propose and approve adjustments to those rules. Next up will be the city manager report.
Yes, thank you. I just have a couple of brief updates tonight. Didn't include anything in the packet of detail. As noted, we have reintroduced ourselves into social media platforms. There's been some information about that. The front page of our website now has the feeds for that, so that when one updates, the website is updated as well, so they can follow those announcements and feeds. We also have up and live our email, kind of group email system that's attached and interlaced with our website provider, and we will be putting emails out to that. On the website, there's going to be opportunities for our residents to register and join in so that they can get notifications whenever things are published. If they may not follow social media and they prefer emails or SMS or text message notifications, we'll have those opportunities as well. So as many ways that our residents would like to keep informed and involved and engaged with the happenings and announcements of the city, we want to offer it to them. So we will make sure to present that in every way that we possibly can. Update on the payroll implementation is on schedule. Speaking of technology, we should still be good for an April 1 launch date from what we're told, and that should go seamless. And our final training for the outward portal of our code enforcement permit request system should be live and ready to go, and hopefully by next meeting we will have the introduction of that, and that will also be integrated on the website for hopefully in time for people getting ready to do some spring projects to the property and make our permitting process a little bit more efficient and easy for our residents to track and be aware of. So that's all I have of significance for this week.
Sounds like a lot of technology stuff. And I like it. I'm pleased with where we're at on that. I think that's a good improvement to have the Facebook page to post the city events. And then, as you notice, everybody in front of us now is computers, and this is coming a long way for Bellbrook. Any questions or comments of the city manager report?
I looked at the city website. It looks really good. I like it.
Thanks.
Okay.
Anyone else? Moving on, committee reports, starting first with safety.
The only thing I'd mention is talking to some of the fire personnel that the stair chair that we got a year or so ago, they really like that. It's takes a lot of stress off their backs, and they really appreciate us funding and buying that. And I mentioned, I said I'd like to see that thing, and if up to city manager, they said they could maybe bring it down before a council meeting and demonstrate.
Sure. Cool.
Because it's a really great piece of equipment, saves a lot of backs. You know, everybody was kind of worried about the price of it, but man, you save one back, you saved a ton. So, the other thing is, when we purchased the ambulance, and that's been what, beginning of the month, it's went up 18% since then, so we did good. So, that's all I got.
Thank you, Forrest. And the floor is still yours if you want to give us a service committee update.
The only thing I got is the gas line being put in behind station number 2, going all the way down to the township. This company, they do a really good job. You know, they put the pipe in, and then they put everything back the way it was, and you can contact them if there's something 6 months later, they'll come back and repair it. So just bear the inconvenience of the streets and stuff, but they'll put it all back. They're good about that. And if you noticed what they did in front of Drug Mart, you can't even tell they were there. That was done last year. So it's an inconvenience, but it's a good thing. And if you do have issues, they'll take care of it. That's all I got.
Do we know how much longer that project's going to continue?
I'd say probably another month or so.
Actually, on.
I mean,
our
through our
website-
town there.
Just a second.
I just drove back there, and it's a lot of front yards and backyards. And
Yeah.
Expected, well, the overall project is expected to be done by the end of October, but this phase, I believe is, you're correct, but there could be some back and
Yeah,
forth. And
sure.
reclamation and restoration of the properties by October is what they've got listed.
Right. Because they replaced a section down there where I live, and the guy gave me a card. He said, if you got any issues, he said, a year from now, call me. And so I hope people, if you have a little anxiety about what's going to happen to your yard or driveway or whatever, they'll take care of it. So that's a good company.
good, Forrest. Thanks for the update. Finance and audit, Catherine.
I don't have anything specific to report, but I would like to have a meeting soon so that we can discuss some of the input that we received from the community on the ARPA funds. And then we can also take into consideration what the Greene County Commissioners had brought up at the last meeting about not-for-profits and things like that too.
I'll work with you for a date.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Community affairs, Elaine.
Okay, the Community Affairs Committee was unable to meet prior to tonight for appointing the planning board member. We will be schedule a meeting shortly, and we'll have a recommendation at the next council meeting.
Okay. Anything else, Elaine?
Nothing else right now.
Thank you. We have no bids. We do have 2 items of old business to deal with tonight. First up is the deputy mayor selection. At this time, I would like to open the floor for nominations for deputy mayor. And again, as I commented last time, the deputy mayor in my absence automatically becomes the mayor. If I would leave the role, leave the city or something like that, then they would actually become the mayor, and they would forfeit their remaining term on council. And they would line their term with the mayor's term, which is 2 years versus 4. At this time, we can open the floor for any nominations. Do we have any nominations for deputy mayor?
I know I just got back, but I'll nominate Ernie. Mr. Havens was instrumental on me joining council as an appointment. And in honor of that, I'd like to nominate him as deputy mayor.
Okay, can we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Catherine. Any more nominations?
I'd like to nominate Forrest Greenwood. He has been a longtime member of the council. He's very, very familiar with the City of Bellbrook and has served honorably for some time. So in honor of that service, I think it'd be nice for him to be deputy mayor. He has the knowledge and the background to support it.
Okay, can we have a second for that nomination?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Brady. Rob, I'm not sure if we're familiar enough to vote online, or if we want to just do it in person, or how we want to do one after the next.
I can open it up if that's what council would like to do.
I have to see if my
Which,
thing is.
are you going to go alphabetical again?
It says voting is not open.
Yeah, I
Refresh.
haven't opened it.
I don't know.
Oh, this thing, yeah.
We can either do it electronically, or we can do it in person. Just speak out who you're.
It's off the Muni Code app.
I'm on the Muni Code app. I'm not finding
Maybe
it.
Sergeant Burns can help.
The
Yeah,
main
we're-
one, this one here. Should be the first one
It's not the one to come into the,
that came open. There you go, and then.
Rob, we can just do it out loud and.
There we
Yeah,
go.
I don't see a place on mine either.
this is different than the sign into the computer.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's you need your email password.
Oh.
We'll get you set up. That's fine.
Okay.
Can we just vote for which one, or do we have to vote for each one of them?
There's 2 nominations.
Yeah.
So we would vote for nominations. And if they're, as a chair, I believe last time it was alphabetical.
Mm-hmm. It
I
was.
believe is what you did.
Yeah, yeah,
You want to do the same?
yeah.
So the first would be the nomination for Mr. Sorry. The first would be the nomination for Mr. Greenwood, made by Mrs. Middlestetter, seconded by Mr. Harding. Mrs. Cyphers?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Harding?
Yes.
Mr. Havens?
No.
Mr. Hoke?
No.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mayor Schweller?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We don't have to vote anymore.
No, that passes.
Congratulations, Forrest. You now will become the deputy mayor. In my absence, you are the mayor, and you'll forfeit the remaining years of your term as a council member, but congratulations to you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And we can also move the seating if he wants to, or you can actually sit in this seat and we'll have vacate the first seat. I don't know, maybe Louis might have thoughts on if it's better for the camera work or not, but you're certainly welcome to sit next to me at the next meeting or tonight if you want to.
Okay, okay.
Congratulations again, thank you.
Thanks.
Next up is item 15B, under old business, the Rules of Council Amendment discussion. Rob has sent this out to us, and I know we've had a lot of long meetings. We've kind of let this one sit for a little bit. Is council prepared to discuss it tonight, or do they want to defer it further? It's not something that's overly critical, but if you read through what Rob has put together and what he has redlined, my opinion is that he's basically conformed these rules back to how we conduct the meetings, and we have done for the last umpteen years, so to speak. Some of the sections that we had out there in the agenda, the reference of legislative proposals, that has not been part of our agenda for a long time, but once we saw the rules, Rob kind of trued it up and said, we need to have this on the agenda. So we've done everything with it, but that's one of the sections that's discussed in here that we're going to delete. So I think if you look at, under the first section, under paragraph C, Rule 3, it just says that the clerk shall be required to read the minutes, and we've done away with that a couple years ago. And then, we just say council shall be polled for any additions or corrections. And maybe after that, maybe want to put it to the minutes, but I can pass that on to you, just to make it clear. And go down, and I think the rest of the stuff is pretty much consistent with how we've been operating. You go down to subparagraph 5, the votes. That just allows us to have electronic voting instead of voting in person. And then other than that, if you get into Rule 5, it's primarily the agenda for the meetings, and we're back to how we've conducted business in the past. And then as we get into the committees, again, it's pretty much how we've conducted business. And I think the rules and the changes there have just been, just to clarify, in other words, to publish a schedule of meetings. Well, if we want to have a committee meeting, we just schedule it and work on with it from that, and we notice it as need be.
Mr. Mayor, just a question. Not to complicate things, but with this added technology and with the lessons we learned through the COVID and hosting virtual meetings, would it be possible to have a council member attend virtually?
The current ruling within state law calls for open public meetings to be in person to cast a vote.
Okay.
However, there are a couple of communities that have invoked their home rule and have indicated and maintained a state of emergency and are still operating remotely.
Okay. So it's one or the other, can't do both.
I would have to defer to Mr. McHugh on that. But I believe that the last ruling that we had is once the state declared emergency was up, then that reinstituted the original definition of open meeting being in person.
And that was my understanding too, unless you invoke home rule. And I think, is it Yellow Springs that's done that? I think there's one community that has.
It is Yellow Springs, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
It's not that I was in favor for it. I just see, since we're talking about topics such as these, I thought, is this an opportunity to address that? But
correct, and it is an interesting question, and I'd be more than happy to have Mr. McHugh see if there is some definition with the fact of if you are videoed in, are you considered present? But the law clearly says in person, so the exception for that was within the emergency provision, as I understand it and was explained to me, and that no longer exists. So that means that if they're not in person, then they can't be present for the meeting.
okay.
And Rob, I'm now kind of outside my pay grade on some of these changes. A lot of them are just generic things, but toward the back, you've made some sort of content changes and things out there. And if you want to take us through any of those things, I think a lot of them are very self-explanatory.
Certainly, most of it is just deletions for things that aren't done on the agenda. That's pretty much what most of that is. Anything that's redlined, it's just basically removal. The only other thing was election of the deputy mayor, where it was talking about secret ballots. We've obviously taken that out and changed. If no one member receives a majority vote, a second vote shall be taken as opposed to ballot, because that's what we would do. And on the very last thing, motions to table after being seconded may be debated by members of council. If it's tabled, any motion to table could be discussed at its second. So it can stay in there. It just doesn't seem to be necessary language. But that's all that I looked at are things that were correlated to what we're actually doing. Specifically, on the agenda. We did look at the agenda of moving the citizens registered to speak portion up to the beginning of the meeting so that residents would have the opportunity to discuss items prior to council's deliberation and decision on it. I know that we had some discussion on that, and you'll note that change. And
this is, they'll have one chance to speak on the legislation we're gonna talk about that evening. It's not every time we have another ordinance, they're not gonna be able to come up again. It's one time to come up.
yeah, if they register to
And they'll
speak,
register in advance to speak on it.
yeah, we can have them register to speak that way. When that item comes up, you can either call on them to speak at it at that time, or you could call on them at the time of that particular agenda item.
Yeah.
It would be up to your discretion. And
And is council okay with that? That's kind of a big change from what we've been doing. And I didn't mean to gloss over it too quickly, but I'm glad that Rob clarified it.
That's the only real question I had on all of them. What if someone wants to speak on a non-agenda item?
I think it's open discussion.
yeah, we would probably want to put in there, and I thought that
Open discussion
thought
is
that I
open.
had that in there, that that we would have just citizen comments either right before or right after number 6. So citizens registered to speak on agenda items that would be specific to that agenda, or just general citizen comments like we would have, and then
And then not at the end of the meeting, right?
and then at the end of the meeting would be city official comments, which would be, members of council, because the anybody coming in to speak publicly would have done so towards the beginning of the meeting,
Which I think is
as
great
opposed to the end.
not make the public wait through the entire meeting, but right now, as it's written, they can only speak on agenda items.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, when I did this, the intention was to put in there, citizens registered to speak on agenda items, and we could either just leave it open for citizen comments and have one of each, so that you can choose to call on that resident or citizen at the time of the agenda item discussion, or entertain it at the beginning during public comment. But yes, it was intended to have an item of public comment up there with it, so I didn't put it in there, but that was the intention. I think I just forgot.
So the intention is to have two, one on agenda items and one on open discussion further down towards.
Yeah, or you can just leave it open to say, comment about anything, including agenda items. It's just if there's going to be a vote and particular deliberation, sometimes the residents are here just to speak on that particular thing, and then that gives the chair an opportunity to have those comments made during the time that agenda is discussed, or, at the beginning of the meeting, depending on the length of the agenda. So it's truly everyone's discussion, how you would like to see the meetings flow. We can design the agenda to be however you like it. One of the goals was, though, as we kind of discussed and that we've heard, was to give citizens an opportunity to comment about the business of council prior to them making their decision in some way, shape, or form.
I don't think we should leave it to one way or the other, or however we feel. I think we should set it to be either all speak at the beginning or speak on at the time of the item comes up. To do it one way one day and one way a different day, I think would be problematic.
I'm not sure that's what he was saying. I think if you wanted to speak on just something that's not on the agenda, could be at the beginning of the meeting.
But he also said you could speak,
But
you
then,
can speak in the beginning or when the agenda item comes up.
but pick one way or the other.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But if it's an agenda item, I think they should speak when the agenda item is up for discussion, so that all that discussion is in together. And if they want to speak on something that's not on the agenda, put it at the beginning of the meeting.
My choice would be, they would be registered to speak, they're entitled to 3 minutes, and if they want to speak before the first ordinance to read, they can speak before that one. If they want to speak for the second ordinance, they would speak before that one, versus having them speak about 3 or 4 ordinances, when in fact they're talking to the last one, so we at least hear their comments before we discuss the item.
So Mayor, you said ordinance. Did you mean agenda item or just ordinances?
I meant it collectively, all agenda items.
Okay.
And I think it would be logical to go ahead and have the item at the top of the meeting, so that you can note who would be registered so that you can call upon them at the time of that agenda item.
And
To
we
make
would-
sure to incorporate them as part of the
We'd have them
discussion.
registered by a certain cutoff time. They'd have to get their comments in
Right.
via email or something like that. They're gonna speak that night.
Right, they could come in and register, prior to the beginning of the meeting, and they would turn those in, and we'd be willing to take their comments. But that also does leave the question, not to complicate things, of just open general comment, if you still wanted to leave that at the end, or if you wanted to have that at the beginning. The purpose of the registration, again, is to make sure to allow for time at that agenda item discussion point to accommodate those discussions.
Because there's two kinds of discussion, non-agenda items and
Correct.
agenda items.
Correct.
I think we should allow for both.
Maybe before we open for the first piece of legislation that evening, we would have open comments
Yep.
on anything. And then after that, the open comments will be limited to the next item coming up on the agenda. And then we would not have open comments at the end of the meeting.
Right, right. It'd just be council comments at the
Yeah.
end. So we would put open public comments basically prior to, that would then become effectively number 6, and then number 7 would be the citizens registered to speak on agenda items. Okay?
For openness of public announcements, would we want to have those individuals and their topic that they want to discuss listed on the agenda so it's publicly announced?
You can, but then you're going to require somebody to indicate what they're going to speak about up to at least a week ahead of the meeting, and
Okay.
that
Could be tough.
can probably create some consternation.
Okay.
So we're saying that you cannot speak at this meeting if you don't tell us before it starts.
No, the idea of having public comment is just that. If someone shows up and wants to address council, you have public comment. But you also have somebody registered to make sure that they can speak to a particular agenda item.
Okay.
Yep.
And the other thing too, I think it'd be worthwhile that we have some rules of engagement for people that come up to speak and make it very clear they get the 3 minutes. And I've seen several communities have bullet points on what the speakers should and should not do, just to make sure they're all aware, because the complaint here is always at 3 minutes, and that's been the rule since our charter. We've never, I don't think, varied from that, other than allowed a few people by error, just let them go a little bit longer than the 3 minutes, but we continually hear that that's never been the rule, but that always has been the rule.
Somewhere I saw 5 minutes.
5 minutes is regarding debate amongst council on an issue.
Okay. I knew
So
I
in other
saw it
words, yeah,
somewhere, but I
yeah.
don't remember where.
So if you don't want to talk about it, one of the things, you can't sit here and talk for a half hour about why you like it or don't like it. You get 5 minutes to. I've never seen that invoked, and I would hope we don't, but that's what that's there for, my understanding. Okay. Rob, why don't we modify what you have here?
Okay, will do.
Delete the things that we've already deleted, and then maybe put in red how Rule 5 is going to read, and make sure everybody's okay with it before we sign off on it.
Yeah,
And the language describing it, so it's all very clear.
we'll get that for next meeting cleared up. What we'll do is we'll just have a, just like this, a draft, and incorporate that one change.
Either comments or questions, or?
I just got a question on, I'd called Rob earlier about the clerk position. It's mentioned out throughout the rules. If for some reason he wasn't able to attend, should we have somebody designated from staff or something? Maybe we don't even need to mention it in the rules, but is that something you think we need, or
Yeah, I think it would be,
maybe have somebody from admin, maybe 1 or 2 designated to be possible clerks for 5-minute training session or something?
yes, yeah. And maybe the language would, simply be the, because technically the clerk of council really can't make the designee, because that, by rules, council declares who the clerk of council is, however, through just absences or whatever the function of clerk of council. But I think we can say clerk of council or designated alternate, something like that, and then we can kind of indicate and announce who that would be by virtue of memo to council, and so that it's on file, so that if any member of the community had a question as to who the acting clerk of council would be, should there have a need to be. Actually, the rules could state that if the clerk of council is not available, that they can designate someone in their absence upon approval of the mayor. And then that way, we can send correspondence to the mayor. The mayor can approve that acting clerk of council, and that way there is a matter of record and approval of that.
Yeah, it's
I think
just
that'd be
something
it.
that, if something came up real quick,
Sure.
it's there, you know.
Sure. That's a good point.
And Rob, if you could just lay that stuff out and
Sure
kind
will.
of revise those sections and just tell us the changes and make sure we're all comfortable with the language and move forward on that.
Sure will.
So I have a couple comments on that. So I was at Sugar Creek Township's meeting about a month ago, and they do both portions of comment. One's restricted to specific agenda items, and then one is like open comment, so you could take a peek at that. They have rules, I noticed, and then so did the Greene County Commissioners. They have a set of rules, so you don't have to entirely reinvent the wheel. We could
Right.
maybe borrow some of the language from both of those two groups, because I'd say they're our working partners in the community.
Correct. And that is very common practice, so a
Yeah,
lot
I
of good
noticed that
examples out
too.
there, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, super. Well, thanks for taking the time to look at this. It's been out there for a long time, and I know we've never paid a lot of attention to it, but these are things that, if you disregard them so long, they always come back to haunt you later on, and you wish you clarified something, so at least we did. No new business. At this point, we have public comment of council members. Starting alphabetically, we'll start with Councilwoman Cyphers.
I don't have any more public comments. I already made all of mine on my questions for the appropriation.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Greenwood.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate being voted in as deputy mayor. Thank you, council. Sergeant Burns, I'd like to mention him again, thank him for his service. He was on third shift a long time. He, you know, in my mind, I knew he was on third shift and everything's good. And thank his family and his wife Marilyn, all the years that he served. That's somewhat of a hardship for families at times because of the service. You know, the call comes in, you got to go to work, maybe in the middle of something you had planned. But I really appreciate his service. And then I talked to Rob earlier in the week about if council would like to have maybe a little flag or something for the people of Ukraine on the city building. I know that the Greene County has the courthouse lit up in Ukraine flag colors at night. So if it's something that people would like to entertain, something small, inexpensive or something.
I'm fine with all that.
Okay.
Whatever makes sense. I know we can't change our lights outside. I don't think as easy as the county does the courthouse, but
I think they got something in place. But, you know, just some memento with,
yeah,
Just fly a blue and yellow flag.
Sure.
yeah. Is that it, Forrest?
that's it. Thanks.
Councilman Harding.
I'd just like to echo what Forrest was just saying about thanking Sergeant Burns. I'd also like to again congratulate Chief Carmen. We're very excited to have him on board. Also wanted to again congratulate the 4 Eagle Scouts. What was it, Dakota, John, Connor, and Luke. It was kind of fun having that many people in the council meeting, at least for the beginning part, you know. So but it was good.
Thanks, Brady. Councilman Havens.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, congratulations, Forrest.
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll be a great deputy mayor. I ran into a business owner this week, and I was very happy to hear his comment about our city administration. He said specifically, and I quote, "Jason Foster is a class act." It's nice to hear positive comments from the business owners. He's been working with him to open up a business here in downtown, and thank you, Rob, for bringing him to the team. I appreciate it. And lastly, I'm looking forward to working with Chief Carmen. I think he made a good decision there, Rob.
Thanks, Ernie. TJ.
Yeah, second all the congratulations all around, Chief Carmen, Sergeant Burns, and the Eagle Scouts. And I also want to thank everybody for my appointment. The past few months was a little challenging to just sit on the sidelines and watch the process go through. But I think it was a testament to our government, our local government, the people that are here, and I appreciate it. It is an honor and a privilege to serve this community, and I look forward to the next 2 years when I will have to go and then maybe actually run for election, which I'm glad to do. I've been out of the loop for a little bit, so I might be oblivious to what's going on, but I do just wanted to ask about for the past year, there was a occurring almost quarterly, maybe semi-annual community leaders meeting. Is this part of my naivete now? Just what is the status of those?
It's been about a 2-month-long thing trying to coordinate schedules. I know all the administrators have thrown out, but to be honest, we've all kind of gone dark on it in the last probably month because it's just kind of been difficult to pull together conflicts and meetings in one group, and it was originally going to happen the 22nd, and then apparently that's the night of the MVRPC annual thing, I believe, or one of them, maybe Greene County or MVRPC. So that was the last date that everybody says, oh yes, that looks available. And so I made a recommendation that instead of trying to schedule an actual published meeting of all entities, which is a logistics nightmare for open records and agendas and stuff like that, rather than that, and I haven't had a response back from the other entities, but the recommendation was on a quarterly basis, one of the respective entities hosts for at the beginning of their meeting, we just notice a meeting, and then the other entities are invited to come. However many of them come, they're just attending another public meeting. It wouldn't really affect them because they're not conducting their business, we're conducting our business. And then it could be open for comments or updates from those entities, from whoever the designated representative from those entities are, to give the updates, and there could be, some question comments, because that seemed to be what the meetings were, is more or less making sure that each of the entities are kind of up to date and engaged. And then next time it would be, the next entity's turn, and then our delegation of folks would go and attend their meeting, and because that those meetings are scheduled. And I'm not sure that anybody meets on the same night. I think everybody meets on different nights. So that was the last recommendation, to make sure that, hey, we already have meetings scheduled, so we know at least one of those entities is available. That way you're not reliant upon the scheduling of the entire body of the other entity. Whoever can make it goes, type of situation. So that's out there, being percolated to see if that would meet the need.
We've had a couple of those meetings, but not.
Yes,
They fell off the radar during the COVID, so.
yes,
And then we've had one, I think.
yes.
We had one COVID meeting, we did it online through Zoom, and we had a lot of attendees. Then you had
Right.
one meeting, I think, at the township.
Yeah, because we offered to host it here for this last upcoming one, but there was again a conflict, and
So at this point, we're still thinking about it.
it would appear, right, it would appear. So it's about,
Attempting.
yeah, we offered to host, so we're just kind of waiting to see the other entities to coordinate an alternative date or time. Or as I indicated, give up on trying to get everybody there. If somebody can't make it, they can't make it. Life happens. So schedule a meeting and
Okay.
make it happen.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Sure.
That's all I had.
Elaine?
Well, I will triple the compliments to the Chief Carmen and to Sergeant Burns and to the Boy Scouts, Eagle Scouts. And just glad to have the folks here and be back in person for meetings. It feels normal again.
Good. Thanks.
Except for this thing in front of me, I'm still trying to figure it out.
tonight before you leave. We're fixing that tonight.
Thanks, Elaine. Again, I re-echo the sentiments about our police chief, about our retiring sergeant, and also the Eagle Scouts. It's nice to be back in play and to have those, especially the Eagle Scouts are always kind of a fixture of our meetings. We had them here quite a bit. We'd have one or two come in, then we'd go a couple meetings and we have another one come in or something like that. So now we're back in swing of that. The other thing too with Chief Carmen, it's also nice that we have promoted from within for all of Rob's direct reports. And I think that's just nice that we're bringing people through the rank and file. We have some long-term employees, but Ryan, Steve Carmen, and also Anthony have all been with us a long time, and it's just nice to be able to promote our people from within, and it speaks highly to our departmental leadership. Only other item I was going to mention is next Thursday, March the 24th, we're going to have a Dayton VA town hall with Mark Murdoch, the director and CEO of the Dayton VA. This is not a council meeting, rather it's a forum to allow Mark to talk, and it's myself and Rick Prowlis that are kind of sponsoring it, but it's for the veterans, and it's a forum for them to let Mark know their questions, their concerns, and their problems. We had some issues. Rick did this back in November of 2020. He actually wanted to do it at Bellbrook, but our building was shut down. So we did it at a building in the right state. And a lot of the vets came in and they had issues from if they carpooled and brought 4 or 5 vets to the VA center, could they have preferred parking, or they have to park in the lot and hike their way in. I guess, I don't know much about it for us, but I guess it's a long walk from some of the parking lots. Mm-hmm. They also talked about medication, if they had medication that they needed a short supply of or something, if they're traveling or whatever, they would have to call, and I guess it got mailed to them, and they wanted to see if they could pick it up at the VA. But just a lot of common sense things. There's probably about 25 people there, and the conversation was pretty fluid for about 2 hours. So we're going to try to do the same thing and bring in the vets in Bellbrook and out the outlying community as well, and just have a forum, and it was just a good exchange of information and something value added to make sure that everybody knows and feels free to ask whatever they want to ask about their veteran services. And that's out on our website.
It is.
And again, 4 to 6:30 on Thursday, March 24th. That's all I have for tonight. I know we have people in the viewing audience. Would any of them care to speak? If so, you're entitled to 3 minutes. Take the podium and state your name and address.
Mayor Schweller, City Manager Schomer, distinguished council members. My name is Jo Beth Bryant, and I am the owner of Crafters Lodge at 4417 West Franklin Street here in Bellbrook. Hopefully you've had the opportunity to read the letter that I left for you this morning. I also sent an email, and I want to talk to you about that after my 3 minutes are up. I'll not go into the details of that letter now. I'm sure you can read it, except to say that it outlines the hardships my business has faced over the last 2 years and my request for consideration for funds available to local businesses. What I would like to do instead is to give you a little bit of background about me and my business, and so that you can make a more informed decision. My childhood was spent in a small town very much like Bellbrook, and I grew up in a house where making things with your hands was the norm. My mom was an amazing crafter. She crocheted, painted, sewed, worked in ceramics, all forms of needlework. The list goes on and on. I would often come home from school to find a new craft kit or project sitting on the kitchen table. And a funny story about that, she brought a calligraphy kit home one time, and you have to understand, my mother had beautiful handwriting, but she was having some problems with the little metal nibs that you use in calligraphy, and she wasn't amused when I sat down and did it better than her the first time at bat. So my dad was a welder by trade and a furniture builder at heart. So I learned to saw, sand, and stain at a very young age. My business was born out of that love for making things with my hands. I chose the name Crafters Lodge because so many of the places my mom and I went to for classes were actually in people's homes. And I wanted to recapture that feeling of warmth and welcome. I currently have over 7 instructors who rely on my shop to be able to teach their craft. Many of them are single women who supplement their fixed income with teaching. A typical week at the shop would see the Monday morning quilt group, knitting class on Tuesday, open stitch on Thursday, and Friday brings in the tatting group and class. Saturday is painting, and once a month we have embroidery club. Each of these groups involves anywhere from 5 to 15 people. People who come together to learn, share, and socialize. These past few years have seen so many of our local small fabric and needlework shops close, and the loss is felt most severely by those who have no other outlet. It would break my heart to add Crafters Lodge to that list. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak, and I invite you all to come down and visit the shop at any time. Does anyone have any questions?
Council?
Are you still working with Greg to move your shop?
I'm, that's a very large stone
Yeah.
that does not roll easily.
Yeah.
So,
Aware of that.
What's the current state of your business
meaning?
in terms of volume? Is it recovering? Is there permanent
Slowly.
damage that has to be?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Are certain aspects of your business non-recoverable? I remember I was at the ARPA funds meeting. You mentioned
yeah.
sale of rather complicated sewing equipment was a big part of your business.
Yeah.
Is that something that you
It's
ever?
coming back, yes.
Okay.
That's slowly. I mean, it's a supply chain issue right now. We just can't get the machine. The machines are all made overseas. They're all made in Asia. And getting them here is the problem. One of the biggest problems is parts. Vietnam is where the vast majority of parts are made. And Vietnam shut down. They shut down everything. And then they opened back up for a little bit, and then they shut down again. And I guess from what last I heard, they are slowly opening up again. Some parts are made in Taiwan, and we can get those, but it's, it's hard.
Okay.
It's just hard, but it's slowly starting to come back, but now we have this huge backlog. I have one particular model of sewing machine. The lady ordered it a year ago. I won't see it until maybe June, if I'm lucky. And that's just the way it is.
And you had a big increase in rent as well, I understand.
Had a huge increase in rent. New owner, he lives in California.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't get Ohio pricing.
he's definitely not a Buckeye. So,
So I'm really hearing 3 waves. There was the initial wave, then that really caused lack of sales because of the lack of events.
and just not being, I couldn't even be open. I wasn't supposed to be open. I did anyway, because I figured if Joanne's could be open, by golly, so could I. But people didn't come. They just didn't come because they thought everything was closed. So there was many a day that my technician and I sat in there by ourselves, But yeah,
But the third wave really is lack of product to sell.
lack of product right now. Yeah, it's slowly but surely it's coming back, but it's going to be months still.
And what did the state of Ohio provide in terms of zero? Why? What happened there?
They ran out of money before they got to me.
Okay.
The Small Business Administration did make some my loan payments for a little while, but that was it. That was the only thing I got.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So 5
That was-
years from now, where do you see yourself? Okay. Worst case, best case.
Best case scenario, I see myself in the Pennewick building with, with a coffee shop and all kinds of cool stuff. Worst case scenario, I have to move out of Bellbrook.
Where would that go to?
Xenia. It's the only
Cheaper rent?
It's not the demographic I want. It's not the people I want to serve, because this is my home. This is my town now. We chose Bellbrook. I chose Bellbrook when we moved back to Ohio on Scott's last duty station, because it reminded me so much of home. And it had an award-winning music program, because my youngest daughter was very musically inclined. So we chose Bellbrook. I wanted to be here, and I want to stay here. I just got to try and find a place to make that happen.
Okay.
So, and one other thing, when I tried to email all of you, when I clicked on yours and copied, when I pasted it, it came up yours. And when I clicked on yours and copied it and pasted it, it came up somebody totally different. Somebody I didn't even recognize the name. So on the web page, when you click on your email address and just do copy, it doesn't always copy correctly. So you might want to have a look at that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo Beth. Does anyone else in the viewing audience care to address council this evening? Does anyone on council have any more business to bring before us tonight?
No, Mayor.
Seeing none, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.